They called me the story's necessary shadow, the bitter, scheming woman cast in stark relief against the luminous heroine. My name is Lara Vance, and all I wanted was to go home. When my mission was marked a failure, my only wish was for an end. The fantasy world of Viridia could keep its glittering towers and tortured souls. I just wanted my real life back, my real name, and the embrace of my dying mother. So when the system's cold voice confirmed that this body's death would be my ticket home, I didn't hesitate. I made my way to the soaring balcony of the Athelstan Tower, the city of Luminaire, a dizzying tapestry of false lights below. Just to be certain, I whispered into the chill night air, if I die here, I wake up there, correct? Affirmative, the emotionless voice echoed in my mind. Termination of host body initiates return sequence. That was all I needed. The wind snatched at the silk of my gown as I moved toward the wrought iron railing. I'd barely taken 2 purposeful steps when a voice, sharp with familiar disdain, cut through the dark. Planning another performance, Ilara? I turned. Leander Thorne, my adoptive brother. The name brother was a relic from a different lifetime. I'd found him in the rain-slicked alleys of the iron-wheeled district when he was 7, a shivering ghost of a boy hiding in a refuse bin. I was 12, an orphan myself, but I pulled him out, cleaned his wounds, and shared my meager world with him. For 7 years, we were each other's only family. Then, when he was 14, his true identity was revealed, the lost scion of the mighty Thorne dynasty. They swept him away, and the boy I knew vanished. The next time I saw him, he was standing in the gilded halls of the elite, a devoted knight in the radiant court of the story's beloved heroine, Celeste Everhart. The years I'd spent scrubbing floors and stitching clothes to keep him fed and schooled had dissolved into a distant, inconvenient memory. Now he looked at me as one looks at a stain on fine linen. Tonight had been the grand finale of my humiliation. My engagement party to Julian Thorne, no relation to Leander, but a titan of industry in his own right. The ballroom was a sea of jewels and false smiles, until the news broke. Celeste had been kidnapped. The room emptied in a heartbeat. My fiancé, Julian, was the first to the door. He paused only to seize my wrist, his dark eyes burning with accusation. "If this is your doing," he hissed, the words meant for me alone, "there will be no depth to which I will not sink to see you pay." Then he was gone, chasing the ghost of his true love. That was the 100th time Julian had chosen Celeste over me, 100 explicit, systematic rejections. And with that, the mission in my head flatlined. Task failed. Subject's devotion to primary heroine is immutable. Extraction recommended. A soft, bitter laugh escaped me. I looked at Leander. The warmth I'd once reserved only for him, long since turned to ash. "Why are you still here, Leander? Shouldn't you be riding to your goddess's rescue? Don't let my tragic finale delay your grand entrance." He flinched, caught off guard by the glacial calm in my voice. He didn't know that Celeste's kidnapping was a carefully staged farce orchestrated by her family to obliterate my wedding, a dramatic ploy where she would emerge miraculously unharmed to universal adoration. "Just stop, Ilara," he said, but I had already turned my back. My mission was over. There was no reason to linger in this cruel, scripted world. The sole mercy was that the system, noting my persistent effort, waived the standard failure penalty of total erasure. I could go home, back to my own failing body in a hospital bed, back to my mother's sorrowful eyes. I quickened my steps. "Ilara, what are you doing?" Leander's voice shifted, the mockery replaced by a spike of raw fear as he saw me reach the railing. He was suddenly closer.
This stunt won't make him love you. Even if you jumped, you'd never measure up to Celeste in his... His words died as I hoisted myself onto the balustrade and pushed off without a backward glance. The fall was a symphony of rushing wind and utter freedom. The glittering falsehood of luminaire rose to meet me, and I smiled. Almost home. But the world did not end. A searing jolt ripped through my shoulder. A hand, vice-like and desperate, clamped around my forearm, wrenching me to a horrifying stop. Leander hung from the railing with one white-knuckled hand, the other gripping me as we swung over the abyss. "Let go," I said, my voice eerily tranquil. His face was a mask of strain, eyes wide and shimmering. "Ilara, please, this isn't the way." I said, "Let go, Leander." I began to thrash, not to save myself, but to break his hold. The metal of the railing groaned in protest. "Stop, we'll both fall," he roared. When I persisted, his tone cracked into a plea. "I can't watch you die. If you keep struggling, I'll fall with you. Do you truly wish for my death? Ilara." He used my old childhood nickname, Lara, a sound I hadn't heard from his lips in a decade. I looked up into his eyes, once the bright, trusting eyes of the boy I sheltered. Now they were frantic, searching for a trace of the sister he remembered. I almost laughed at the sentimentality of it. So I did laugh. A cold, sharp sound.
Who cares if you die? The color drained from his face. His grip faltered for a heart-stopping second. Yes, now. But a gasp from a doorway, followed by shouts, startled him back. His fingers retightened, trembling violently. Soon, hands were pulling us both back onto solid ground. Leander was silent, shock having stolen his voice. When I immediately tried to lunge again for the edge, he moved like lightning, his hand encircling my wrist with bruising force. "We don't know what's happened to Celeste," he announced to the gathering crowd, his voice hollow. "As the prime suspect, it's my duty to ensure she doesn't flee." He couldn't meet my eyes, but for a fleeting instant I saw it. Not anger, but a devastating, confused sorrow. The boy I'd pulled from a dumpster, whose wounds I'd cleaned with my last rag, who swore I was the only truly kind person he'd ever known, was now my reluctant jailer. And because of his self-appointed duty, I couldn't find a moment's peace to die. After a second, even more determined suicide attempt in his presence, this time with a shattered vase, the truth finally dawned on him. This was no act. Ilara Vance genuinely sought oblivion. His demeanor shifted from hostile to hauntedly gentle. On the silent car ride to the Thorne estate where he was keeping watch, he tried to reason with a ghost. "You've made mistakes, Ilara," he murmured, staring at the rain-streaked window. "But Celeste, she's forgiving. If you just apologized." I kept my eyes closed, feigning sleep, but when he mentioned Julian, a traitorous pulse flickered in my throat. He noticed, and a bitter smile touched his lips. I didn't care. Julian, my mission target, the tragically devoted second lead who in the original story would walk into the sea after ensuring Celeste's happiness, if I could provoke him enough, perhaps he'd grant me the release I couldn't secure myself. Julian Thorne arrived like a winter storm. Leander was monitoring me in the drawing room as I listlessly played a handheld game. The one moment the screen was alive with color, the next it was shattered on the marble floor, and Julian's hands were around my throat. "Where is she?" he snarled, his beautiful face twisted by fear and rage. "What have you done with Celeste?" They hadn't found her yet. Perfect. Celeste adored a drawn-out climax. I couldn't help a small, satisfied smile. It was the wrong reaction. His grip tightened, stars bursting at the edges of my vision. Perfect, I thought again, euphoric. Strangle me. Go to prison, I go home. But a roar shattered the moment. Leander lunged, throwing a wild punch. Julian dodged, releasing me, and I stumbled into Leander's protective hold.
He shoved me behind him, placing his body between me and Julian, his whole frame vibrating with a fury I'd never seen directed at the mighty Julian Thorne. "You nearly killed her," Leander barked. Julian stared at his own hands, dazed, before his gaze found mine over Leander's shoulder. It cooled instantly. "Leander, Ilara is my fiancée. This is a private matter." He stepped forward. "Come here, Ilara." I didn't move. Leander held his ground. "Your fiancée, and you tried to murder her in your own home. Who gave you that right?" "She had Celeste kidnapped," Julian snapped, veins cording in his neck. "We don't even know if she's alive. Or have you forgotten who welcomed you into society? Who defended you when you returned to the Thorns? Celeste did. Don't be ungrateful." Leander's loyalty to Celeste was his weakest point. He almost always crumbled. But after a long, tense pause, he asked, his voice low and steady, "Do you have proof?" Julian's answer was a torrent of rage. Hasn't she done enough? The stolen heirlooms, the forged letters, the sabotaged events? Everyone knows, and each time Celeste forgave her. From behind Leander's back, I nearly laughed. Of course she forgave me. My alleged crimes were the backdrop against her saintly glow. Just as I opened my mouth to provoke Julian further, Leander spoke, stunning us both. "I believe Ilara." The silence was absolute. "I believe Ilara," he repeated, stronger. "She's innocent." Julian looked stunstruck. I found my voice first. "Don't start now, Leander. You've condemned me 100 times. What's one more?" I tried to step around him. He caught my wrist, holding me fast, his eyes locked at Julian. "Under what condition does a person choose death to prove a point? When they are so utterly defenseless, so consistently wronged that the final act is the only voice they have left?" He took a breath. "After you left her."
At the altar, Julian, she jumped off the Athelstan Tower, right in front of me. She doesn't want to live here anymore. I realized then what his afternoon of silence had been. My smile of relief as I fell must have looked, to him, like the bitter grin of a martyr finally freed. I saw Julian's knuckles whiten, a spasm of pain flashing in his eyes. Before I could speak, Leander was pulling me toward the door. "They won't listen, but I do. Come with me, Lara, please." "No." I wrenched my arm free and gave him a smile so cold it could frost glass. "Don't play the hero now. I don't believe you." A provoked Julian was still my best chance for a clean exit. With Leander playing guardian, that chance vanished. I expected Leander to rage, to retreat into cold disdain. Instead, he just stood there, shattered. His eyes glistened, his voice dropping to a broken whisper. "I won't let anything happen to you." Then he turned and walked out, leaving me alone with Julian. Julian was watching me, a storm churning behind a deceptively calm facade. "You and Leander seem close." I shrugged. I raised him, that's all. It was the first time I'd ever stated it so plainly. The secret of Leander's childhood, the years in the Iron Weald, was a buried relic. Julian's eyes widened infinitesimally. Before I could blink, he pushed me onto the divan. His hand went to my throat again, but this time the pressure was absent, his touch almost a caress. His face was inches from mine. "Let's end this fight, Ilara," he murmured, his breath warm. "Just tell me where Celeste is, please." For a heartbeat I saw it, the ghost of the man who once knelt with a ring, who promised a quiet happiness if only I would behave. He had only proposed because Celeste, believing I was after her true love, had pushed him to. I was a placeholder, a shield. Now, staring into those familiar, tormented eyes, I smiled faintly. "Ilara," he said, hope sparking, "be good. We can fix this. Just stop hurting her." "In your dreams," I cut him off, my voice glacial. "Telling you where she is or pretending we have a future, both are fantasies."
If you push me, I won't be responsible, he warned. Then don't be responsible, I challenged. Do it, or are you weaker than I thought? He flinched. Then, darkness. I awoke groggy, my body heavy, my mind cotton-filled. I felt a warm touch on my cheek, then the soft, lingering brush of lips against mine. A dream. Julia never kissed me unless an audience required it. But the voice that followed was real, low and unsteady. Alara, what am I supposed to do with you? I forced my eyes open. He was gazing down at me, and for the first time I saw beneath the controlled mask a chasm of guilt, regret, pity. Then it was gone, sealed away. His face hardened. Tell me where Celeste is. In his hand was a syringe filled with a clear liquid. This, he said with eerie calm, is rare, expensive, and untraceable. 3 minutes of agony, and it looks like a heart attack. I smiled. He mistook it for surrender, until I grabbed his wrist and drove the needle into the vein in my own neck. Julian, I whispered, my vision already blurring, a secret for you. He was shouting, clutching me, his composure shattered. I know you loved me. Just stay awake. I leaned into his shoulder, finishing with the last of my breath. I loved you, but you never trusted me. Now the thought of you makes me sick. I'd rather die than share your world. With a final surge of strength, I pushed him away, his face contorted, shock, pain, utter confusion, as I slipped from his arms. Finally, home. The door burst open. A new voice, calm and kind, rang out. Julian, we found Celeste. It was the Markov Syndicate. They confessed to everything. Elias Cross, the story's original male lead, my childhood friend, and the source of all my original sin in this world. I didn't hear Julian's response. My soul was lifting, light as air. My parents' faces shimmered before me. And then something yanked me back. I opened my eyes to sterile white and the scent of antiseptic. A hospital. You're awake? Elias was beside my bed, calmly peeling an apple, his gentle smile in place. I explained everything. Julian is ashamed. They all know they were wrong. Don't dwell on it. You still have me, your big brother.
I let out a cold laugh. In that case, brother, shouldn't your girlfriend clear my name publicly? She's the one who made me the villain. Elias's smile tightened. He had no answer. Elias Cross, the boy next door my parents practically adopted. The night my world ended, his parents called in a panic during a storm. Elias was missing. My mother begged my father not to go out, but he couldn't abandon the boy he saw as a son. Their car skidded off a bridge. They were found the next morning. Elias returned home safely that same dawn, clean and confused. He'd helped a lost little girl, he said. She lived in a mansion. Her maid gave him shelter. The little girl was Celeste Everhart. While my parents died calling his name, he was mesmerized by her world of marble and light. Years later, the system showed me the truth. His guilt over my parents bound him to me. His rediscovered fascination with Celeste bound him to her. I was the painful reminder. She was the soothing balm. My attempts to get close to Julian for my mission only made me, in Celeste's eyes, a rival for Elias's attention as well. Her jealousy was a venomous seed that grew into the forest of lies that ensnared me. Elias, I said quietly, testing the waters that had drowned me. What if between Celeste and me only one can live? Elias, don't talk like that, he said, the smile not reaching his eyes. Tell me what you want, I'll make it happen. Then kill me. He froze. I can't. Then make her kneel and apologize, because if you don't kill me, I will kill her. His composure shattered. Elias, everything Celeste did was because of me. If you need to hate someone, hate me. He realized his admission too late, his face draining of color. So you knew, I whispered, the last ember within me turning to ash.
When she accused me of stealing the Everhart tiara, you knew the footage was fake. You knew the witnesses were bribed. You knew she planted the money in my account. My voice broke. You knew, every single time. Elias slumped, his silence a confirmation more damning than any shout. If you had defended me just once, maybe someone would have listened. Your girlfriend gets your protection. What did I get? The scraps of your guilt? He reached for me, a reflex from childhood. I slapped his hand away. Elias, I asked, laughing through sobs, who have you ever truly protected? You failed my parents. You failed me. Stop, please, he choked, his body shaking. You wanted to atone by keeping me close, but you secretly shielded her. You tried to have both and saved neither. I struck him, hard, across the face. His glasses flew, red marks blooming on his cheek. The proud golden Elias cross sank to his knees on the cold hospital floor. I was wrong. I failed you. What can I do? Please tell me how to make you forgive me. I stepped back, my eyes dry and cold. Your apologies are worthless. You don't want my forgiveness. You want absolution from your own conscience. I walked out, leaving him gasping on the floor. Elias, he called out, a broken, pleading sound. Can you really not forgive me? The door burst open. Leander stormed in, tears of rage streaming down his face. He hauled Elias up and punched him, pinning him to the ground. Are you never satisfied until you drive her to her death? You're a monster. I trusted you, and I failed her too. I was cruel. I never meant. Nurses rushed in. Elias was sedated and taken away. Leander remained, his desperate eyes finding mine. Sis, he begged, voice trembling, come with me. Julian will destroy you. Please, I'm begging you. When the Thorne family guards appeared at the door, I walked past him without a word. Why? He shouted after me, his voice breaking. You always cared for me. Why is it that now all you see is him? I paused, offering a bitter smile over my shoulder. You didn't seem to value that care when you called me a vicious social climbing serpent. Leander, you're no better than Julian. You're both repulsive. I left him there, shattered. Julian, perhaps having seen the hospital scene, began to avoid me. Trapped in his gilded mansion, I tried every method I could conceive, jumping from sealed windows, cutting with confiscated blades, drowning in a watched bath. Every exit was blocked. The kindly head keepsake, Mrs. Byrne, called him in tears. Sir, she's breaking. You must come. He didn't. I let out a cold laugh. In that case, brother, shouldn't your girlfriend clear my name publicly? She's the one who made me the villain. Elias's smile tightened. He had no answer. Elias Cross, the boy next door my parents practically adopted. The night my world ended, his parents called in a panic during a storm. Elias was missing. My mother begged my father not to go out, but he couldn't abandon the boy he saw as a son. Their car skidded off a bridge. They were found the next morning. Elias returned home safely that same dawn, clean and confused. He'd helped a lost little girl, he said. She lived in a mansion. Her maid gave him shelter. The little girl was Celeste Everhart. While my parents died calling his name, he was mesmerized by her world of marble and light. Years later, the system showed me the truth. His guilt over my parents bound him to me. His rediscovered fascination with Celeste bound him to her. I was the painful reminder. She was the soothing balm. My attempts to get close to Julian for my mission only made me, in Celeste's eyes, a rival for Elias's attention as well. Her jealousy was a venomous seed that grew into the forest of lies that ensnared me. Elias, I said quietly, testing the waters that had drowned me. What if between Celeste and me only one can live? Elias, don't talk like that, he said, the smile not reaching his eyes. Tell me what you want, I'll make it happen. Then kill me. He froze. I can't. Then make her kneel and apologize, because if you don't kill me, I will kill her." His composure shattered. "Elias, everything Celeste did was because of me. If you need to hate someone, hate me." He realized his admission too late, his face draining of color. "So you knew," I whispered, the last ember within me turning to ash. "When she accused me of stealing the Everhart tiara, you knew the footage was fake. You knew the witnesses were bribed. You knew she planted the money in my account." My voice broke. "You knew, every single time." Elias slumped, his silence a confirmation more damning than any shout. "If you had defended me just once, maybe someone would have listened. Your girlfriend gets your protection. What did I get? The scraps of your guilt?" He reached for me, a reflex from childhood. I slapped his hand away. "Elias," I asked, laughing through sobs, "who have you ever truly protected? You failed my parents. You failed me." "Stop, please," he choked, his body shaking. "You wanted to atone by keeping me close, but you secretly shielded her. You tried to have both and saved neither." I struck him, hard, across the face. His glasses flew, red marks blooming on his cheek. The proud, golden Elias Cross sank to his knees on the cold hospital floor. "I was wrong. I failed you. What can I do? Please tell me how to make you forgive me." I stepped back, my eyes dry and cold. "Your apologies are worthless. You don't want my forgiveness. You want absolution from your own conscience." I walked out, leaving him gasping on the floor. "Elias," he called out, a broken, pleading sound. "Can you really not forgive me?" The door burst open. Leander stormed in, tears of rage streaming down his face. He hauled Elias up and punched him, pinning him to the ground. "Are you never satisfied until you drive her to her death? You're a monster. I trusted you, and I failed her too. I was cruel. I never meant." Nurses rushed in. Elias was sedated and taken away. Leander remained, his desperate eyes finding mine. "Sis," he begged, voice trembling, "come with me. Julian will destroy you. Please, I'm begging you." When the Thorne family guards appeared at the door, I walked past him without a word. "Why?" he shouted after me, his voice breaking. "You always cared for me. Why is it that now all you see is him?" I paused, offering a bitter smile over my shoulder. "You didn't seem to value that care when you called me a vicious social climbing serpent. Leander, you're no better than Julian. You're both repulsive." I left him there, shattered. Julian, perhaps having seen the hospital scene, began to avoid me. Trapped in his gilded mansion, I tried every method I could conceive, jumping from sealed windows, cutting with confiscated blades, drowning in a watched bath. Every exit was blocked. The kindly head keepsake, Mrs. Byrne, called him in tears. "Sir, she's breaking. You must come." He didn't.
When I resorted to banging my head against the wall, he began a new tactic: uneasy penance. Flowers arrived daily: lilies, roses, forget-me-nots. I threw them out. He sent more. I sometimes caught his silhouette fleeing my doorway at dawn. We were locked in a silent war of attrition. The system's warnings grew more urgent. My time was running out. The stalemate was broken by Leander. He began a crusade demanding my release, threatening his own family, creating a very public feud with Julian. Finally, he confronted Julian directly. "If I hadn't disappeared during her best years," Leander spat, "Ilara would never have been yours. You're just a thief who doesn't know the value of his treasure." It struck a nerve. That night, the smell of expensive whiskey announced Julian's presence in my room. He was a wreck of grief and intoxication, collapsing beside me, pressing my hand to his fevered cheek. "They say your love was stolen from me," he slurred, "that I don't cherish you. But I do. I just don't know how to face you." "Julian," I said flatly, pulling away, "I am not your love. You left before our vows. I was never your wife."
He recoiled as if struck, then burrowed deeper into his drunken performance. "No, my Lara loves me most. You'll always be my only wife." "You're too old for this charade," I sighed. "Honestly, if you'd just stayed loyal to Celeste, I might have respected you a little." He slammed his fist into the pillow by my head. "Then what am I supposed to do?" he roared, tears of fury in his eyes. "I was born a pawn for my family. Celeste was the first light. What do you want from me?" His voice broke, softening. "You've done bad things too, but it's fine. I forgive you." "A madman," I stated coldly. "She's so perfect, right? Then marry her. You deserve each other. You're pathetic." He stiffened. "No wonder she doesn't love you," I continued, twisting the knife. "You don't deserve love from anyone. I must have been blind." "Shut up." He was on me, hands around my throat. "You promised to stay. You said you'd never leave. Why can't I feel your love anymore?" As my vision tunneled, I managed a cold smile. "Yes, like this. Kill me. I get my funeral, you get your execution." Horror flooded his face. He released me as if scalded. "You're doing this on purpose," he whispered, trembling. "You'd rather die than stay." His voice cracked into desperation. "No, you love me. You're just angry. I'll win you back." He pulled me into a suffocating embrace. "I'll marry you. A quiet life, just us." I shoved him off and slapped him. Then, in a blind fury, I rained blows upon him with whatever was at hand, a lamp, a book, a glass of water. "If you have any courage, Julian, kill me and end this. Stop torturing me." The glass struck his forehead, splitting the skin. Blood traced a path down his stunned face. He stood in silence for a long moment, then picked up his jacket. At the door, he let out a hollow laugh. "You say I favored Celeste, but look at you. Elias would burn the world for you. Leander worships the ground you walk on. Are you really so innocent?" I laughed, the sound echoing in the vast room. "You're right. They are good men. Perhaps I should give up on you and choose one of them." He fled from the sound of my laughter. The next morning, my final guest arrived, Celeste Everhart herself, a vision in pristine white, sent by Julian to explain. "Everyone knows Julian loves me," she sighed with faux sympathy, settling across from me. Her eyes glittered with malice. "Even with your reputation in tatters, Elias begged to clear your name. He really does dote on his little sister." She leaned forward, and Leander, when he returned to the Thorns, he talked of nothing but you. I advised him to wait, to become stronger, so he could make you happy. And then he finally saw you again and never spoke of it. Why? She smiled, the predator moving in for the kill. Because the kind sister he idolized had become a liar, a parasite. I didn't react. Instead, I smiled back. Yes, Leander is wonderful. It would be even better if he finalized that deal to sell your family's failing subsidiary that worthless patent, just like Elias did with the Everhart X project last year. Her face vanished. The color drained from her face. I had orchestrated it all. Through silent prompts to Elias and leaked information to Leander, I had engineered twin financial strikes
against the Everhart empire. Their most valuable assets were now worthless, and the evidence pointed back to their own trusted circles. She stood, composure cracking. "You vicious—" "It was Elias's indecision that made you insecure," I said, calmly, rising. "His fault, not mine. So now I take my revenge." I picked up my steaming tea and flung it in her face. As she shrieked, I yanked the silk scarf from her neck and twisted it. "Alara, if you do this, Julian will never forgive you," she gasped. At that perfect moment, Julian arrived with his guards. His eyes took in the scene, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw not rage, but a terrifying, hopeful joy. "Ilara," he said, his voice a storm of forced fury. "It was all an act. You never change." I loosened my grip slightly. Celeste, seizing the script, whispered tearfully, "I can help you. I swear. We can make a bet." I listened, then nodded, letting her go.
Julian swept her up, heading for the hospital. His final glance was heavy, unreadable. I expect an apology when I return. Celeste knew him perfectly. Upon his return, Julian, believing her tale that I needed a lesson in gratitude, removed all my guards and dragged me from the house, ignoring Mrs. Burns' pleas. "She'll be fine," he sneered, his earlier vulnerability buried under a smug certainty. My performative tears and pleas only confirmed his belief that all my actions were cries for attention. Celeste was right. I've been too soft. You need to understand who truly cares for you. I looked up, my voice a whisper. In all our time, Julian, did you ever believe me, just once? A memory flickered in his eyes, a glimpse of my care, my loyalty, but it was swiftly eclipsed by the shadow of a girl in the rain from a decade ago. "Ilara," he said, a ghost of regret in his tone, "even the best game loses its appeal when played too often." He left me in a secluded, decaying gatehouse on the estate's edge. Think about what you've done. The moment the door closed, my despair vanished. I walked into the woods, not toward darkness, but toward a prearranged glimmer of light. Then a sharp pain at the base of my skull, and everything went black. I awoke to the roar of the sea and the taste of salt spray. Celeste and I were bound, perched on the crumbling edge of the cliff of sighs. Before us, Julian, Leander, and a tactical team stood frozen. The kidnapper, a mercenary paid with the last of my resources, spoke. "Mr. Thorne, choose. Only one leaves the cliff alive." Julian's face was granite. "Name your price. Let them both go." He looked at me, his voice softening with an awful tenderness. "Don't be afraid, Ilara." The mercenary laughed. "We don't want money. We want to watch you lose both women you claim to love." Julian's hand twitched, a signal to a hidden sniper, but the mercenary jerked Celeste perilously close to the edge. She screamed, the bandage from her tea scalding fluttering pathetically. "Julian, I'm scared." His eyes fixed on that white bandage, a symbol of my latest crime, and his guilt solidified. "Choose," the mercenary barked. Celeste met my eyes for a split second. "You lose again," she mouthed, a smug curve on her lips. I smiled faintly. "Aren't you afraid they'll discover this is staged?" "With my family's influence," she whispered back. "Never." "Mr. Thorne, time's up." The mercenary shoved Celeste. She screamed, a masterpiece of terror. Julian's shoulders slumped in defeat. He turned to me, his eyes full of an agonized apology. "Ilara, is this what you wanted? To force me to choose? I've played your games long enough. I can't let you keep hurting people." And just like that, for the 101st time, Julian Thorne chose Celeste Everhart. The world held its breath. Celeste shot me a look of pure triumph as she was pulled to safety. The mercenary released me, his part done. Julian exhaled, a weary disappointment settling on his features. "Ilara, stop turning everything into a test." His words died. I had stepped back, my heels finding empty air at the cliff's very edge. "Ilara," his voice trembled.
"Sis, no!" Leander fought against the officers holding him, tears carving paths through the dirt on his face. "He's not worth it. I was wrong. I was jealous. Please." I smiled, a calm, distant thing. "Julian, this is the 101st time." He stared, uncomprehending. "The 101st time you've chosen her over me." My voice was clear over the wind. "I did love you. If just once you had chosen to believe in me, none of this would exist." True panic, primal and raw, flashed across his face. It was the most satisfying thing I'd ever seen. I turned to Celeste. "A parting gift." I tapped the second button of my blouse. "A live feed. Everything you said, everything you did. The world is watching." For a second, she was frozen.
Then she scrambled for a phone. The screen illuminated her face, now pale with a new kind of terror. Hashtags trended worldwide. Hashtag Everhart exposed. Hashtag the bully of Luminaire. The video of her confession, her smug cruelty, was everywhere. "It's fake!" she screamed hysterically at Julian. "She's lying!" But Julian was already staring at his own phone, his face ashen as he witnessed her true nature, her staged kidnapping plot laid bare. He looked from the screen to me, his world crumbling. Celeste's accomplice, the mercenary, was gone. He'd been my ally from the start. "He helped me," I said softly to her. "He gave me the camera, so now you two can spend a lifetime wondering who to blame." I looked at Julian one last time. "Have fun in the ruin you chose." And I leaned back into the waiting arms of the storm-tossed sea. The air roared. I heard my name screamed in twin voices of despair, Julian's broken howl, Leander's ragged sob. Then the icy, welcoming darkness of the deep swallowed me whole. My soul slipped its tether. From above, I saw Julian collapse to his knees, vomiting blood onto the rocks, screaming until his voice shattered. Leander, finally breaking free, had to be physically restrained from throwing himself after me. In a quiet study miles away, Elias Cross sat before his computer, the video of Celeste's confession playing on a loop. His wrist was slit, blood dripping onto the keys. With his last strength, he deployed a final wave of code, ensuring the truth could never be buried. "Ilara," he whispered, slumping forward, "you must hate me, but it's done. I didn't spare myself. Next time, I'll make it right." My parents' faces appeared, glowing with love. My friends from my real world waved, tearful smiles on their faces. The system's voice echoed faintly, a final chime. Host's departure has triggered profound existential recalibration in primary subjects. Core mission parameters indirectly satisfied. Reward, full restoration granted. I opened my eyes. My mother was clutching my hand, her tears falling on my skin. "It's a miracle," she sobbed. "The doctors, they don't understand. Your tests are clear. The illness, it's gone." I pulled her into my arms, weeping tears of pure, untainted joy. My father joined the embrace. I was home, truly home. Time, real and gentle, flowed on. I healed, returned to my studies, and rebuilt a life bathed in genuine love. The system offered one last glimpse, a closing chapter on the world I left behind. After my death, Julian's grief curdled into a vengeful madness. He used every resource to dismantle the Everhart empire, exposing every lie, every crime. He forced a hollow, public apology from Celeste, then systematically destroyed her family. Within 3 years, the Everhart dynasty was dust. Celeste came to his mansion one stormy night, a pale ghost kneeling in the rain, begging for the scraps of his former devotion. He didn't even open the door. He abandoned his company, his fortune, drowning himself in whiskey and regret. When I saw him last, he was in a rented room, dying of liver failure, a shell of the formidable man he once was. "You look different, happier. That's good." He reached a skeletal hand toward me. "I'll be there soon. I'll find you. Make it right." I shook my head. "No, Julian, you are the only one dying. I was reborn into the light. Our paths will never cross again, not even in death." I left him there in the lonely dark of his own making. As for Celeste and Elias's suicide attempt failed, but his family disowned him for betraying the Everharts. Celeste, stripped of power, clung to him, the last person she could manipulate, draining him of whatever remained. The night the final Everhart asset was seized, she went to his barren apartment, pleading for a new beginning. He let her in and turned on the gas. They were found together the next morning. And Leander, he carried the weight of his guilt like a penance. He left the Thorn fortune and name behind, disappearing into the remote, mist-shrouded mountains of the northern reaches.
He became a teacher in a village with no electricity, dedicating his life to the children there. In his dreams, he sometimes saw me. "Sister," he said once to the phantom, "I'm helping people now. I finally understand what it means to be good. Does it make you proud?" The spectral version of me only shook my head. "No, Leander. The day you denied the girl from the iron weald, the sister who raised you for 7 years, was the day our story ended. It is long over." He wept, reaching for a forgiveness that was no longer mine to give, but I had already turned away. The past was sealed, a book closed forever. I walked forward, into the warm and boundless light of my own, true beginning. The sunlight in my own world held a warmth I had forgotten. It didn't just touch the skin, it seemed to seep into the bones, thawing a permanent chill I hadn't even realized I'd carried. My recovery was hailed as a medical marvel. The doctors shrugged, smiled, and used words like spontaneous remission. My parents didn't question it. They simply held me, their tears a baptism of pure relief. I was Leanna again. Not Ilara, not a mission runner, just Leanna. I went back to university, to a degree in literature I'd had to put on hold. The words on the page were just words again, not potential dialogue from a pre-scripted world. The coffee in the student union was terrible and perfect. My friends complained about exams and crushes, and their dramas were blessedly, beautifully small. I reveled in it. The quiet, the ordinariness, the sheer safety of a life where no one was a protagonist and no one had a hidden tragic fate. For months, the system was silent. I assumed our contract was complete, the connection severed. I was just a woman with a strange, fading nightmare and a profound gratitude for the smell of rain on concrete and her mother's cooking. Then, one autumn evening, as I was shelving books in the library where I worked part-time, the voice returned. It wasn't the cold, mechanical tone from before. It was softer, almost organic. Query: host displays optimal post-integration stability. Diagnostic curiosity: do you ever reflect on the catalytic parameters of your exit strategy? I nearly dropped a copy of Wuthering Heights. I leaned against the stacks, my heart thudding. "You're still here?" Affirmative. Observer protocol active. Final report pending closure of secondary emotional feedback loops. The epilogue provided was a narrative summary. Direct observational data is available. Do you wish to view the resolution vectors for the subjects Julian Thorne, Celeste Everhart, Elias Cross, Leander Thorne? A part of me wanted to scream no, to shut it out, to bury Viridia forever. But another part, the part that had been Ilara for what felt like a lifetime, felt a cold, surgical need for closure. Not for them, for me, to see the finality of it. "Show me," I whispered. The world of the library didn't dissolve. Instead, images and sensations superimposed themselves over the quiet rows of books, like a vivid daydream I couldn't control. The image was stark, not a rented room, but a sterile, private hospital suite. He was indeed a shell, his powerful frame wasted, his eyes the only alive thing in his face, burning with a feverish intensity. He wasn't just drinking himself to death, he was meticulously orchestrating his own demise as his final act of corporate warfare. On a screensaver that flickered across a monitor, I saw it, a live feed of a demolition site. The Athelstan Tower, the place from which I'd first jumped, was being reduced to a cloud of dust and memory. "It's where I lost her the first time," he rasped to an empty room, his voice a ruin.
It shouldn't stand. Nothing that hurt her should stand. He had turned his vast fortune into a self-destructing engine of ruin, taking down not just the Everharts, but any rival, any associate, anyone who had ever benefited from the world that had broken Ilara Vance. He wasn't seeking death as an escape, but the ultimate punctuation mark on a legacy of obliteration. In his last moments, he didn't whisper my name. He stared at the blank wall, and with his last breath, he said with vicious clarity, "Checkmate." He died alone, believing he had finally won a game only he was still playing. The image faded, leaving behind the taste of ashes and futility. The system showed me their end, but it was different from my summary. Elias's apartment wasn't barren. It was a shrine. One wall was covered in printed photographs of us as children, of my parents, of a happier, simpler time. The other wall was a chaotic evidence board, strings connecting news clippings about the Everhart collapse, financial reports, and photos of Celeste looking increasingly desperate. Celeste didn't come to him pleading for a new start. She came shrieking, a harpy stripped of her finery, blaming him for everything. "You loved her more. You always did. You destroyed my family for a ghost." Elias, gaunt and calm amidst the storm of her rage, simply nodded. "Yes, I did. For them. For her." He had already opened the gas valves hours before. He hadn't planned a mutual end. He had planned a trap.
"You took my family," Elias spat, unaware of the sweet, odorless death filling the room. "And you took mine," he replied, his voice gentle, almost like the big brother he'd once pretended to be. "This seems equitable." He didn't wait for the gas. As she raged, he picked up a scalpel from his desk, a tool from his abandoned medical aspirations, and drew it across his own throat with a surgeon's precision, his eyes on the childhood photo of us all. Celeste's screams turned to choking panic as the reality of the gas reached her. The last thing Elias saw, the system showed me, wasn't her terror. It was the smiling face of my mother in the photograph. His expression was one of exhausted relief. Their ends were not a tragic shared moment, but a final, twisted act of his guilty penance and her deserved punishment, delivered in one bloody, silent package. I shuddered, pushing the history of romantic poetry more firmly onto the shelf, anchoring myself in the mundane. The mountain village was real. The system showed him not in a dream, but in a drafty schoolhouse, patiently helping a small girl sound out letters. He looked older, weathered, but his eyes, when he smiled at the child, held a peace I'd never seen in him. At night, he wrote letters he never sent. The system let me read the words scrawled on rough paper by lamplight. "Sister, today one of the children called me Teacher Leo. It's the first name I've had since leaving that didn't feel borrowed or stained. I thought you'd appreciate the simplicity. I thought of the dumpster in the Iron Weald, and how you gave me my first real name when you called me mine. I was yours, and I forgot. I traded that name for thorn, for status, for a place beside a false sun. I teach them that names have meaning, that kindness is a choice you make every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I think I'm finally learning the lesson you tried to teach me when I was 7. I don't ask for your pride. I know I forfeited that right. But I hope wherever you are, you have found a peace as deep as this mountain silence. I carry you here, in the place where I keep the boy you saved. He's sorry." He never posted the letters. He burned them each morning in the stove that heated the schoolhouse, letting the smoke carry the unspoken apologies into the vast, uncaring sky. His penance was a quiet, endless one. He wasn't waiting for forgiveness. He was just living the amends. The images faded. The library was just a library again, silent but for the hum of the fluorescent lights. Observational data concludes. Emotional feedback loops show terminal resolution for all primary subjects.
Host's catalytic function is complete. Observer protocol will now terminate. This conduit will close. Wait, I thought, the word echoing in the newfound silence of my own mind, not with longing, but with a final question. Why did you show me that? I had my closure. A pause. Then the voice, fainter now, as if speaking from a great distance. Empirical data suggests that true closure for the mission runner requires witnessing the finality of the narrative entropy they introduced. You did not simply leave a story, you shattered a paradigm. The aftermath is part of your action's consequence. To understand the full weight of your choice to live is to understand the full depth of the ending you chose for them. It made a terrible, logical sense. I hadn't just escaped. I had thrown a stone into a stagnant pond, and they were the ripples that crashed against the shore and dissolved. And my reward, my cure, was that just a transaction? Negative. The restoration of your biological template was a synergistic anomaly. Your will to return, their collective, desperate will for your existence after your departure, these contradictory energies created a feedback pulse of immense narrative potential. The system harvested and converted this energy. It was not a reward, it was a quantum reconciliation. You earned your life, Liana, not from us, but from the very fabric of the chaos you left behind. The explanation was absurd, fantastical, and yet it felt truer than any simple tale of a wish granted. I had been paid in the coin of their regret, my life funded by the bankruptcy of their souls. Farewell, host Liana. Your story, in all relevant dimensions, is now your own. There was a soft internal chime, like a tiny bell breaking, then a profound and utter silence. Not an empty silence, but a rich, deep quiet. The kind of quiet that exists in a forest after a storm has passed, when the air is clean and the world feels newly made. I finished my shift, the familiar weight of the books in my hands a comfort. I walked home beneath a sky streaked with the ordinary pinks and oranges of a real sunset. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Made your favorite stew. Dad picked up fresh bread. Hurry home. A simple message, a mundane miracle. I typed back, my fingers steady, my heart full of a calm, unshakable certainty. On my way. Love you. I never heard the voice again. The memories of Viridia, of Elara, of Julian's torment, and Leander's letters, they didn't vanish. They became just that, memories. Not wounds, not missions, but stories I had once lived inside, now pressed between the pages of my past.
Tragic, well-thumbed novels, they no longer had power over me. They were simply part of the library of my life, a dark and twisted wing I had no need to visit anymore. My story was my own, and it was a quiet, ordinary, breathtakingly beautiful one. I was home, and this time it was forever. The quiet lasted for years, a good, deep quiet. I finished my degree, not in literature as I had planned before my illness, but in clinical psychology. Something about understanding the architecture of the human mind, the real, non-narrative-driven kind, felt like the ultimate act of reclamation. I wanted to help people navigate their own pain, their own stories, without the interference of cosmic systems or predetermined plots. It felt like building a fort against the chaos I'd known. I met David in grad school. He was studying library science, of all things. He had kind eyes, a terrible sense of humor, and a steadfast belief that the most profound truths were found in the quiet organization of knowledge, not in dramatic revelations. He loved me for my calm, he said, for the way I seemed settled deep within myself. He didn't know about Viridia. No one did. That story lived in a vault I had no intention of opening. We married in a small ceremony in a sun-dappled park. My parents cried, his beamed. It was perfectly, wonderfully normal. The first child was a girl, Sophie. She was all fierce curiosity and belly laughs. The second, a boy named Leo, arrived 2 years later.
The choice of name wasn't a conscious echo, it was simply a name we both liked, classic and strong. But the first time I held him, a tiny, warm bundle with a shock of dark hair, a fragment of a memory surfaced, not of Leander Thorne, but of a skinny 7-year-old hiding in filth, his eyes wide with a terror that had once called out to me. I kissed my son's forehead, a strange, sweet ache in my chest. "You are so loved," I whispered to him, a vow and a benediction. "You will always be safe." Life was full. A modest practice, a home filled with children's artwork and David's haphazard stacks of books, the comforting rhythm of school runs and family dinners. I was Liana, wife, mother, therapist. The other life was a ghost story I'd put down. Then, on a Tuesday, the ghost tapped on the window. I was tidying up my home office after a day of remote sessions. Sophie was at soccer practice, Leo was building a fortress in the living room, and David was at the library. The late afternoon sun slanted across my desk, illuminating a mote of dust dancing in the air. As I reached for a file, my vision shimmered, not a system overlay, but a sudden, intense sense of presence. I looked out the window. At the end of our garden path, by the old oak tree, stood a man. He was not from here. He wore simple, earth-toned clothes, but they had an unfamiliar cut. His posture was too straight, his stillness too absolute, and his face. It was weathered, lined with a piece that looked hard-won, but his eyes were the same. Leander. My breath hitched. It wasn't him as I'd last seen him, the desperate, shattered man on the cliff. This was the man from the mountain schoolhouse, older, his hair touched with gray. But it was him, a living piece of a world that should not exist, standing under my oak tree. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through me. Then a fiercer emotion, protectiveness. This was my world, my sanctuary. He had no right. I walked out the back door, leaving it open a crack. I didn't go far, stopping on the patio, ensuring I was between him and the house, between him and my son, whose name I now felt echoing with foolish irony. "You can't be here," I said, my voice low and steady, the voice I used with agitated clients. "This is impossible." He didn't move. He just looked at me, his gaze drinking me in with a sorrow so deep it seemed bottomless. "Ilara," he breathed, the name a sacred, painful thing on the wind. "That is not my name." "I know," he said. His voice was rougher than I remembered, seasoned by mountain air. "Forgive the intrusion. I did not come through the paths you think. The system is gone. The doorways are closed." "Then how?" He looked down at his hands, calloused and strong. "Do you remember what the voice told you? About narrative potential? About quantum reconciliation?" He glanced up, a faint, weary smile touching his lips. "It seems some energies resonate, a particularly potent memory, a place of deep emotional convergence. It can create a thin spot, a temporary bridge. This spot," he gestured to the old oak tree, "it feels like the place where you found me, that dumpster alley. It has the same echo in the world's skin." My mind raced. It was nonsense. It was the only explanation. Why? After all this time, why would you even try? "Not to disrupt your peace," he said quickly, holding up a placating hand. "I swear it. I came to return something." He reached into the simple bag slung over his shoulder and pulled out a small cloth-wrapped bundle. He didn't step forward to hand it to me. He placed it carefully on the grass at the edge of the patio, as if offering tribute to a wary queen.
"What is it?" "Open it, please." Cautiously, I stepped forward and picked up the bundle. The cloth was soft, homespun. Unwrapping it, I found a small carved wooden bird. It was crude, the work of an untrained hand, but lovingly made. The wood was dark and smooth from years of handling. Beneath it was a piece of paper, folded small. I recognized the rough texture from the letters he'd burned. I unfolded the paper. The script was the same, but steadier. "For the sister of my soul. I carved this for you when I was 9, from a piece of the old apple box you brought home for firewood. I was too shy to give it to you then. I hid it, and when they took me, I stole it back.
It was the only thing I had of you, of us. I kept it all these years. It is the only thing I ever truly owned. It belongs to you. It always did. Do not fear my presence here. This bridge is fading as I speak. I will not be able to return. I simply needed to know that you lived, that you found the light. Seeing it in your eyes is a greater gift than any forgiveness. Be well, Liana. The boy from the alley. I looked from the note to the carving, then back to him. The years fell away, and I didn't see the penitent teacher or the society air. I saw a grimy, wide-eyed child I'd fed and protected, a child I had, in some deep, enduring way, never stopped loving, even after the man he became had broken my heart. Tears welled up, hot and unexpected, not for Leander Thorne, but for that lost boy, for the simple, brutal fact that some wounds are carved so deep they become part of the landscape of the soul in any world. Leo is inside, I heard myself say, my voice thick. He's building a fort out of cushions. Leander's composure broke. A single tear traced a path through the weathering on his cheek. He closed his eyes, nodding as if receiving a profound blessing. A good name, a strong name. Tell him stories of kindness. I will. He was already growing indistinct, like a figure in a mist. The sunlight seemed to pass through him. He said, "The bridge is closing as I speak. Goodbye, sis." He didn't finish. He was simply gone. The space under the oak tree was empty, just the long shadows of late afternoons stretching across the grass. I stood there, clutching the wooden bird and the note, until I heard the crash of cushions inside and Leo's triumphant shout, "Mom, the fort is ready, come see!" I wiped my eyes, took a deep shuddering air of the ordinary, fragrant air of my own backyard, and turned toward the house, toward the sound of my son's joy. I slipped the carving and the note into my pocket. Later that night, after stories and bedtime, after David had fallen asleep reading a journal, I went to my desk. I took out the little wooden bird. It was just a piece of wood, and it was everything. I opened a locked drawer where I kept my most private things, old diaries, my mother's locket. I placed the bird and the note inside. I didn't see it as a connection to that other world. I saw it as a message from a child who had been lost to the child I had been who tried to save him. A message that said, I remembered. I kept the one true thing. I closed the drawer and turned the key. The next morning, over pancakes, Leo asked, "What's the best kind of story?" I looked at his serious little face, syrup on his chin. I thought of epic tales of heroes and heroines, of missions and tragic love. I thought of quiet men in mountains and lost boys in alleys. "The best kind of story, sweetheart," I said, leaning over to wipe his chin, "is the one where everyone gets to be safe and loved and kind at the end." He pondered this, then nodded, satisfied. "Okay, can I have more blueberries?" I laughed, the sound light and free in my safe, sunlit kitchen. "You can have all the blueberries." The ghost had been laid to rest, not with drama, but with a simple return of something that was always mine. The final page of Viridia's story had been written not in fire or blood, but in the soft grain of a piece of wood carried across the impossible by a man who finally learned what it meant to be the boy I'd once known. My story, Liana's story, was no longer just my own. It was intertwined with the gentle, forgiving silence of a past finally at peace, and it continued here, in the messy, beautiful, blueberry-stained reality of a life I had fought 1,000 battles across 12 worlds to win. I was home, and now even the echoes were quiet. 10 more years passed, the kind of years that build a life in layers, like sedimentary rock, steady, strong, and unremarkable in the best possible way. Sophie grew into a fierce, compassionate young woman with her father's love of archives and her own quiet determination to study environmental law. Leo, my sweet boy, surprised us all by becoming a gentle giant with a preternatural talent for fixing things. Broken toys, wobbly chairs, his friends' wounded feelings.
David became head librarian, and his greatest passion project was creating a community storytelling hour that became a local institution. My practice thrived, not because I was a miracle worker, but because I understood the profound power of simply listening to a person's truth, without judgment, without a pre-written script. The wooden bird remained in my drawer. I didn't take it out often, but on rare occasions, a quiet evening, a moment of reflective gratitude, I would hold its smooth, dark form. It wasn't a totem of another world. It was a touchstone of a fundamental truth, that even in the most convoluted, painful narratives, a core of simple human love could survive. It reminded me why I did my work. The ghost did not return. The bridge, as he said, was closed. Viridia and its inhabitants settled into the realm of distant, almost mythic memory. The end, when it came, was not an ending at all, but a culmination. It was a soft Saturday in autumn. David and I were hosting a gathering to celebrate Sophie's graduation. The backyard was filled with the warm chaos of family and friends, laughing, the sizzle of the grill, the clinking of glasses. Leo, now a teenager with his father's calm demeanor, was expertly manning the barbecue, a look of intense concentration on his face. Sophie was holding court, telling a story that had her circle of friends in stitches. I stood by the back porch, a glass of iced tea in hand, watching it all. The sun was a golden coin in a clear blue sky, dappling the grass where my grandchildren, a future dream that felt wonderfully tangible, might one day play. The old oak tree stood sentinel, its leaves just beginning to blush with color. There was no shimmer in the air, no echo of another place. There was only this profound, settled reality. David slipped an arm around my waist, pulling me close. He smelled of old books and charcoal smoke. "Meant you for your thoughts?" he murmured, his lips brushing my temple. "I was just thinking," I said, leaning into him, "how incredibly lucky we are." "It's not luck," he said, with the quiet certainty that had anchored me for 2 decades. "It's you. You built this. You chose this every single day." He was right, and he was wrong. I had chosen it, fiercely and relentlessly, but the path to this choice had been paved with sacrifices I would never wish on anyone, in worlds that no longer existed. As the afternoon light lengthened, a profound sense of completeness settled over me, as tangible as a warm blanket. It was a feeling that went beyond happiness, beyond contentment. It was a silent, roaring yes to every twist, every tear, every moment of despair, and every second of joy that had led me to this exact spot, in this exact light, surrounded by this imperfect, perfect love. I felt it then. Not as a voice, but as a knowing that rose from the very core of my being, from the reconciled quantum scars of my soul. It was the final, formal receipt from a universe that had long ago balanced its books. Mission parameters, ultimate resolution achieved. Host integration, total and irrevocable. Narrative entropy of origin world complete. Catalytic echoes dissipated. Contract fulfilled. Conduit permanently sealed. Conclusion: you are home, not as a refugee, not as a visitor, but as the foundational truth of this reality. The story of Liana is the only story. It has a beginning, a middle, and will have an end, written in the ordinary, glorious ink of a life fully lived. The knowing faded, leaving behind not emptiness, but a deeper, richer silence. The last thread connecting me to the mission runner I had been, to the spectral observer that had lingered, was gently severed. It was not a loss. It was a final, gentle release. That night, after the last guest had left and the house was quiet, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to my desk, unlocked the drawer, and took out the wooden bird and the faded note. I held them for a long moment in the lamplight. Then I walked through the sleeping house, out the back door, and into the cool night air. The moon was high, silvering the old oak. I went to its massive trunk, to a hollow I had known since we moved in. With a quiet farewell, I placed the little bird and its note inside the natural cradle of the roots, covering them gently with dry leaves and moss. It was not a burial, but a returning, letting the earth and the tree hold the memory now. It didn't need to be locked away anymore. It was just a story,
and all stories, in time, return to the ground. I stood there, looking up at the branches etched against the starry sky. No one appeared, no voice spoke. There was only the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the world at rest. I turned and went back inside, to my husband sleeping in our bed, to my children dreaming safely in their rooms, to the life I had built with my own 2 hands and a heart that had learned, through fire and ice, to love without condition.
I slipped into bed. David, in his sleep, reached for me, his hand finding mine. I laced my fingers with his, feeling the steady, familiar rhythm of his pulse. This was it, not an ending, but the everlasting present. There would be no more continuations from other worlds, no more glimpses, echoes, or visitations. The tale of the mission runner, the hated side character, the woman who burned a world with her departure to warm her own life, that tale was done. Its final word was not death or revenge or regret. Its final word, whispered into the dark of a cherished, ordinary room, was simply home. And she lived, truly and completely, happily ever after.